What's up, y'all? How we doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Hope everything's going okay and you guys are doing well. I was going to take a chopper up today and shoot a couple aerial photos, but obviously, as you can tell by the weather behind me, that's not going to happen. So I figured I'd do a little video on some of my stories: Hurricane Ian, San Francisco, World Series, Disney, New York City. I'm not going to give you tips on how to shoot, but I'm just going to tell you some stories and you'll probably learn a couple lessons. So stick around and have a great time watching. So once again, thank you for joining me. A lot of people do ask me about my aerial photography. I've probably flown about 50 or 60 flights, video and stills over the years, and I really enjoy it. It's something different. It's a lot different than flying with a drone. With the drone, you go up, you do your 400 feet, you can fly as long as your batteries will allow you to, and you can get some pretty decent photos. There's some really great drone photographers out there, but it's nothing like flying in a helicopter. I try to fly with the doors off most of the time, so I get a lot of corporate assignments. I have some assignments from some of the big wire agencies, but most of the time I'll hire the helicopter myself. There's a lot of tour helicopters around this area. Most of the major big cities have tours where you can, go and do a tour flight. You can go to the Grand Canyon, you can fly over New York City, Las Vegas, wherever you decide to go. And those are fine and dandy, but most of the times those are booked with a crowd, so you don't really know where you're going to be sitting or who you're going to be flying with. I had a really bad experience with my two sons when they were younger with a company out of Las Vegas that starts with an M. Really disappointing time. They charged a lot of money and they didn't take the doors off, and they put my two young boys in the middle, surrounded by much bigger adults. Overall, it was just a really crappy experience, and I wouldn't suggest them in the future. But otherwise, aerial photography out of a helicopter is phenomenal. There's a lot that I can teach you, a lot that I can tell you about, and I can share some of my stories and show you some of my photos. So stick around and let's see where this takes us. So a lot of people say, why a helicopter? Why would you get a helicopter when you can fly a drone? And I say, a lot of times I get an assignment and I'll have to go cover some areas that are really remote or something that's very unique, and you just can't get there with the drone. A lot of times drones lose their signal, their flight patterns. I like drones for little things around schools, or when I'm doing real estate shots or solar panels, or I'm not flying over people. But with helicopters, totally different experience. You can talk to the pilot, you can get closer, you can just get a lot of things that most people don't get to see. So I started out doing video. We used to fly Bell Jet Rangers, and I used to have this big video device, and we would stick a beta cam on the front. It would be right in the center of the front of the helicopter down, and I would use a joystick, and we would fly in a kind of a straight line, and we'd be able to get the shots that we were looking for. It was for a lot of real estate down in the Fort Myers, Naples, Marco Island area. And I got really proficient at that, and then we started getting a side mount. So it was a rig that had all these shock absorbers. You would stick the camera on the front, and we were able to kind of do some dolly or tracking shots, and that was fun, but it was really expensive, and you had to have insurance to do that. Having my own video company, it gets really expensive really quick, and they weren't cheap. It was $1,500–$1,800 an hour to fly, plus the mount, plus the insurance. So by the time I was done, it was $3,500 just to get in the air, and I would have to make my money on that footage or recoup it or work for a production agency. So at the time, that's the only option we had. This was before drones came along. I've been shooting for almost 40 years, so yeah, things have changed considerably. But I like to shoot helicopters. I like to shoot with the doors off. And the time of day and the subject that you're shooting, it depends on the light. Sometimes you want to get up really early and get that sunset, if it's a beach shot, or sunrise if it's in the Keys. Sometimes shooting in the city, shooting New York City, Chicago, you want to shoot it in the middle of the day sometimes, because you have to get in between the buildings, and the only light you have to shoot a certain subject is when the sun is directly above you shooting down, because those buildings are just so tall and you've got these channels to shoot in. Some other people might not want that. Some people want the long shadows. So everything depends on what you're looking for, and I would suggest that you look at some other photographers, look at the shots that you want to get, and try to determine the time of day, or what time of the year they were shot. Were they shot in the fall? Were they shot in the winter time? It all depends on what you want. So this all comes down to you at the end of the day. But let me tell you, aerial photography from a helicopter is well worth it. So once you decide that you want to fly in a helicopter and take photos, the first thing to do is to find a helicopter service that offers this. There's a lot of private flyers or pilots or whatever you call them that have their own helicopters or work for a company that has their own helicopters, and they do surveying, they do breaking news, they do journalism, they do real estate, art shots, whatever it is that you want to do. So the first thing is to hire them and make sure that A, you can get in there. Second, when you show up, I would talk to them about, making sure that you can get the doors off first. If you have to shoot through the windows, you're going to get a really bad reflection. It's nasty. The shots aren't worth it. If you're forced to do that, don't wear a white shirt. That'll reflect inside the cockpit there, and it'll just smear your images. So wear something dark if you have to do that. But I would obviously check around and make sure that you can get somebody that will be able to take the doors off. So the second thing is you want to talk to the pilot about your flight plan. Tell him what you're looking for. Let him give you some ideas. Most of the time, these guys, if it's a bigger city, they have a route. They have to stay in that area to go from here to here to here. It's more like a tourist type zone. But if you have something different that you're looking for, you need to let them know that ahead of time so they can dedicate a certain amount of time towards that object or subject that you're trying to film. If you're getting paid to do a certain building, if you're getting paid to shoot a certain boat or a park, you need to let them know so they can get flight clearance from the FAA to fly around that area. How high can you go? How low can you go? How long can they hover in that spot? Had a very interesting shoot with Disney over COVID. Disney in Orlando has a no-fly zone. They've had it for years. They don't want people flying over it. When COVID hit, Disney actually shut down the park. They had to shut down Walt Disney World. And I hired a helicopter myself to show how dead Orlando was. Orlando was a ghost town. And I went and hired a private company. We had the doors off. And he was able to convince the FAA to give us a 5-minute window to fly over Disney. We weren't allowed to circle it. We weren't allowed to go here, here, here. We were to go from the helicopter pad directly across Disney, make a U-turn, and come straight back. We couldn't divert from it at all. But that 5 minutes was golden. And I sold a lot of photos from that shoot, and I still continue to sell them. So you need to talk to your pilot ahead of time, and he'll have some ideas. Maybe talk to him a day or two ahead and say, hey, what's the best sun? What's the weather looking like? There's a lot of pre-planning that goes into your photo shoot before you get in the air. All right, so it's the big shoot day, and you've arrived at the airport. And you've gotten parking. You've gotten all your stuff. Let me just give you a couple of really quick tips as to things that you need to do. First thing you need to do is bring cards, big cards that make sure they're cleared. Bring extra batteries if you can. I tend to shoot with 2 cameras, a wide and a long lens, just so that I can have options. And what I do is I'll be like one of those old cowboys with the bandoleros that go across like this. I have one camera on this strap going this way and one camera on this strap going this way. Make sure you have your straps. Take the lens hood off because that will fly off. I've had it happen. I've seen it happen before. I haven't had it happen before, but I've heard about it. Everything needs to be secure. Your rings, I would take them off. If you don't need them, take them off. Cell phone in your pocket if you don't need it. No hats, no glasses. Jewelry, it's up to you. Things fly off. As soon as you're in that window, as soon as you pop out, the wind will blow that camera, take it right out of your hand sometimes. So you have to lean really slow, and as soon as that lens goes past that point, the wind is going to take it. It's kind of weird. Another thing is dress heavy. It's cold up there. Even in the middle of summer for me in Florida, it gets cold once you get up above a certain amount of feet, and that wind is just whipping. Make sure that you have contact. Test the headphones and the mouthpiece with the pilot because he's going to be the one listening to where you tell him to go. He doesn't know your shot. He's looking ahead. He's looking for other things, objects, making sure he's safe. All he's doing is listening to you on that mouthpiece. So when you're taking a shot and you need to back up because you're too close, you need to tell him. When you need to get in closer, you need to tell him. If you want to do a panning shot, if you want to get directly over something, you need to let him know. So you need to check those headphones and make sure your volume and everything is secure before you go up. Now once you're in the air, expect it shakes. The thing is it's not like a train, it's not a cruising shot or a boat on a sunset cruise. That chopper is shaking constantly. So one tip I can give is, and I'm not going to give you settings on a camera, so every single shot is different. Night, daytime, whatever it is. I don't know what you're shooting. But what I can suggest, if you're going to shoot a longer lens or a wider lens, I shoot at least 1/500th or more for quick speed, and I also make sure that my cards are cleared and I'm shooting in RAW. So those are just a couple of the smaller tips that I can suggest. What else? Clear your cards, format your cards, bring extra batteries. If you want to bring a polarizer, bring a polarizer. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like I said, I'm not teaching you how to shoot, I'm just giving you some tips. Alright, so I'm going to show you a couple of photos that I've captured over the years and just give you a little bit of insight behind them. So I think one of my most favorite shoots was filming in San Francisco. San Francisco is a fantastic city. I love it. The buildings are unique. You've got water all around you. And my business partner Steve Kidd and I were out there one day for a medical conference that we were hired to do. We were out there for a week, and we decided, hey, you know what? Let's take some photos. Let's take some aerials. I really want to do it. So we hired a helicopter by ourselves, flew out of the Oakland airport, took a train to get there at 5 o'clock in the morning for sunrise, and man, we got up. The doors were off. It was freezing, but the photos were phenomenal. We got the Golden Gate Bridge. The fog had rolled in, so it was just really, really creepy but beautiful at the same time. And we flew about 45 minutes, flew over Oakland, flew over downtown. It was just spectacular, and that is one city I could recommend to anybody to shoot. Now, that also happened to be the same weekend as the World Series, and because I worked for the wire services, I decided to go back up again the next day by myself, and I captured AT&T Stadium the day of the game. It was the San Francisco Giants against Kansas City Royals, and I shot the stadium. It was getting prepped for the game, and I gotta tell you, that photo has sold hundreds of times on stock market for me. So that was just one case of, you know, you spend the money up front, but you make the money back 10 times. So during COVID, like I mentioned earlier, most of the country was shut down, including New York City. When I say shut down, I don't mean like totally closed, but I do mean there weren't a lot of tourists, there wasn't a lot of travel. And I decided to take some aerial photos of that one day. So my fiance and I went up there, rented a chopper, and ended up taking the doors off. And what we saw was amazing. The Brooklyn Bridge was empty. Times Square was blah. It was crazy. Central Park, there was no people. It was spooky, yet at the same time beautiful, because you actually got to see how much space is in that city. I would do it again in a heartbeat if I could afford it, but it was just something to see. It was totally different. It wasn't like the Grand Canyon. I mean, the Grand Canyon is beautiful in all of its splendor. New York is not that beautiful as far as the city goes, but once you start to delve into the nooks and the crannies and the alleyways and the way everything is set up, you get to see that it's just a miraculous city. I mean, it's amazing what you get to see. So I shot a lot of long lens stuff so that I can get into those, you know, private areas, and then a couple of wide shots, which everybody likes to see. The best photography of New York City I've ever seen was Vincent LaFerre. He used to be a New York Times photographer, and he went freelance, owns his own business now. He's got amazing pictures at night, and it's inspirational. I want to go back and do that. So if you get a chance, check out his site. So last year, Hurricane Ian came through Florida and devastated Fort Myers Beach and that whole southwest area. I used to live there, and I'm very familiar with the beach and Sanibel Island and things of that nature. And when it hit, I tried for 3 days to get a helicopter, and the FAA would not allow us. It was rescue missions only. We were not allowed to fly. So I talked to the local pilot down there and said, "This, you know, give me a call when you get a chance." 4 days later, he called and said, "We got clearance. How soon can you be here?" So I took the 3.5-hour drive down there, and we were supposed to fly at 10 o'clock. Unfortunately, the weather moved in, super cloudy. You know, this was right after the storm. It was still miserable down there, but you know what? This is one of those times when I really had no control over the weather, and I had to get up because I had wire services that were begging for photos. You know, you can only do so much in a drone on an area that's 20 square miles wide. You can't go everywhere. You can't see everything. So I talked to the pilot. He said he'd been up once or twice earlier because as soon as the FAA released the hold, everybody wanted him. But I had booked him. So I got up early, saw some just amazing photos. Devastation was beyond comprehension, and I really feel bad for people. I called a couple of my friends down there. They had somehow survived, lost their homes, lost their cars. I mean, I had one girl that I knew. Her car got swept away. She has no idea where it was. I believe it was over 150 people lost their lives. And I was flying, and I know it was a pretty bad scene shooting it. And it was one of those rat-tat-tat, shooting wide, shooting tight, shooting wide, shooting tight, letting the cards fill up and having to wait because you only got so much time to fly that. But we covered quite a bit of ground, and I've got people calling me for insurance purposes. You know, my house was wiped away, can I buy a photo? Things of that nature. And you know, it's pretty sad, but at the same time, it's got to be done. So that was one way that, you know, I flew, and I really don't remember it. And then looking back at the photos, you zoom in on them and you're just like, wow, I had no idea what I was even capturing at this point. It was more of a shotgun spray, you know, get what you can get. But sometimes that's just the way it is. Somebody's got to do it. I got hired on a job to go to Ibiza, which is Mallorca, Spain, and it's a party island. Everybody is at the beach there. It's really crazy. And I had this client of mine that hired me to go for a week. I had to shoot nightclubs every day. I was 21, 22 years old. And once again, he wanted to shoot video of the island itself, the tourism part. So we rented a helicopter with Spanish-speaking guys. The headphones didn't work in that case. I just had to kind of point where I wanted to go. And it had the old Betacam on the front, and it was 30 minutes of tape. So we were shooting on tape back then, and I would shoot. Well, we got to the 29-minute mark, and I was looking at in the little joystick. There's a little screen we had. It was actually a TV monitor hooked to a cable run outside the helicopter, and we had to swap the tape. So I had a brand new tape in my hand. Well, there was nowhere to land, so we landed on this spire. Is all I can. It was like a rock formation, hundreds of feet tall. And it couldn't have been more than 15 feet wide. It was just like a circle, and we landed right on top of it. And I actually had to open the door while the propellers were going, get out, crouch down, go to the front, hit the eject button, pull the tape, put the brand new tape in, hit record, and then get back. I looked over the edge of that thing, and if my mom knew I did that, she would have shot me. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So the things that we do for the shot is sometimes unbelievable, but. Once again, if you have a chance to shoot from a helicopter or even an airplane that has the window open, I would definitely suggest it. It's like I said, it's nothing like a drone. It's just a once in a lifetime experience, and once you do it, you're going to fall in love and probably do it again and again. The very last tip I can tell you is right before you fly, go to the bathroom. There's nowhere to go up there, and if you've got to hold it, it's going to make for a miserable experience. Take care. Well, that's going to end today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got a couple of lessons out of some of the stories, or at least had a laugh or two. I'm going to get out of here before this lightning strikes. Maybe go get some lightning photos later. If you enjoyed my stories, hit the like button. Please subscribe. I'm trying to build this channel. This is new to me, but I really want to do it. I've got hundreds of more stories to share. So stick around. Have a great day, and happy shooting.